speculate that it was probably true, because I really do believe that this is why you see these corporations now get to this point. This is really generational riches. This is what the children learn to do, to bully other people, to squash them, to join up with other millionaires so that they can leave a legacy always to their family. No matter what you do, you have to, you know, scream the highest and the loudest, and you have to squash all the little people and always hang out with the bigger people and the people with the money, and they're always using each other. That's what it was all about. And the railroad system was no different. This is what they did. They did a lot of bribery. They did a lot of politics, and they made so much money with that. And the corruption that came about because where the railroad was, I mean, think about it. When they started building the railroad, these were like, you know, there was like no-name towns, right? So they were good country folk. They went to church on Sunday. They were farmers. And then all of a sudden, these people come in, and they're all men. They're all men, and they're single men. Most of them are single men, and they want these guys to work round the clock. They have a time frame for making their riches, and they want these people to work. So what do? They build bars for these guys, okay? Saloons is what they call them. And then they brought in girls because they want to keep these guys there, you know, guys alone and working all day long. They got to let off some steam, right? So they bring in saloons, they bring in saloon girls. Then they start building other businesses. But who's building these businesses? The people that know about these towns that are going up, because that's where the corruption is coming in. So these other rich folk that know about all of this, they're building the hotels there, and they're building, you know, restaurants, they're building other stuff so that these people can, they're getting paid, but they're also spending their money, they're gambling in a way. So this is the same thing what you see today. It's no different. These people who are doing all of this stuff to us, right? You don't think that they knew years ago that what they were planning on doing? So maybe they own companies that sell you preparedness food or preparedness items, or, you know, things to protect you in case of a power outage at your home. These are the people that are behind those corporations, those companies that are selling them, because they knew in advance that all this, so they had time to prepare. Did you ever wonder how something happens and like a week later there's a remedy for a problem already invented, patented, already like ready to ship the product? I can't remember what the product was a while back that I was during COVID. I was like, already? I mean, this would take some time. But those are the people that are behind these things, who are getting filthy rich on account of them knowing all of this stuff, and we don't know anything, but they know it. It's called generational riches, where they continue to get rich and their families get richer and richer because of things like this. This is what the children know how to do. Yeah, they go to school, to the fine schools. They don't care about education because they know that they're going to get rich. Why? They're going to cheat, lie, and steal to get their riches, just like their parents did. And I saw that with the railroad, how that happened. And then another thing that came to my mind watching that, and I'm like, well, look at Cuba, look at Venezuela. Where was everybody when this was happening in Cuba? Right there, 90 miles from the United States. This was a very popular tourist destination with the United States. And look what happened there. And they killed Kennedy. People sat by and they didn't question it. Nobody said anything. They believed everything that the press told them. And once they got away with that, Venezuela was the next one that they did with, you know. And this is how they practiced. This is how they learned. This is what taught them how to do all of these things to us. And that's what they're doing now, is implementing all of the lessons that they learned on how to do all of this stuff. We just sat by and we didn't do anything. Of course, my family was one of the families that, you know, had to move from Cuba in order to avoid the communism there. And I heard a lot of horror stories. I heard a lot of stories from my dad. And I would hear him talking to his friends about all the things that they went through and stuff like that. And I've talked to people. I've talked early in this channel, and people always fought me. Oh, socialist is different than communism. Here we go. No, it ain't. Now you know the truth. I told you so. Anyway, so this is where I am, and I'm like, okay, well, this is what they got away with this stuff. They continue to get away with this stuff. And when people are going to stand up, I'm hoping that people are not so brainwashed. They're already trying to brainwash people against armaments. You know what I'm saying? I got to be careful of what I say, because they like to censor people like me who talk about the truth. They don't like the truth. They don't want you questioning the truth. If you question the truth, you're a bad person. You're such a bad person, because you cannot ever question what they call the truth, which is never the truth. It's always the lie. That's why they don't want you to question it. So I'm hoping that at the point that they're ready to say, you've got to give up your armaments, that is when people are going to stand up and say no. Because the minute that you do that, the minute you give that up, it's over. It's over for all of us. I'm telling you right now, it's over for all of us, and you're a sitting duck every which way, whatever way that they want to do to us, that will be it. So hopefully people understand that and know that that is our last saving grace, because when the people stand up against that, that is when the war really starts, the internal war inside the United States. And it's not going to be the people fighting against each other. They can say that because these people are loud. They got big voices, and they have the news to make it seem like so many people believe this. Most people don't believe that. They know that it's going to be the people against the government. Now, whether our military is going to stand up with the people or against the people, that is the question that remains unanswered. Okay? But I sure hope that they do choose the right side, because they should know that they're just pawns in this game, as well. They're going to use them as pawns in this game. And nothing is what they swore to anyway at that point. So that is where my mind is thinking about those things this week. And I'm sad. I'm sad about the way that the world is continuing to go. I'm sad at how many angry people there are in this world. If anybody else, any other things they want to talk about the railroad and how it pushed around so many people, and people just got used to it. I think they got used to being pushed around by rich people. They got used to being pushed around by people in the government, and it's really sad. People waking up and understanding that they gotta get stuff ready. I mean, you're never gonna be as ready as you think, because you're never going to have, you're never gonna have like 5 years worth of food in the house. Okay, I was gonna be honest with you. Unless you got like lots and lots of money, that ain't gonna happen. So we just gotta trust in God. I'll be honest with you, it's hard to believe a lot of the things that we're hearing about. They're gonna run out of this, they're gonna run out of that. Because I went to the store and I see more stuff now than I saw months ago. I go to the Sam's Club, and I'll show you a picture here where the top racks are full where they weren't full. So I wonder if this is just disinformation, so that we can fear because they're losing, something's happening behind the scenes that they're trying to do, and they're trying to spread this information. Maybe they also have their pockets lined because they own a lot of these businesses, and they want you to fear and go out and buy and spend money, because they're going to make money off of it. I go to the store and I have planned to buy stuff, and I'm like, okay, I got flour today, and I got organic flour, and I got everything that was on my list and more I got at the store. Where about a few months ago, I go to the store and I couldn't find chicken, right? recipes. I've been prepping for years, so I have recipes for tortillas. I have recipes for making bread. I have recipes. So I know I'm just, at this point, I'm just buying the essentials. I'm just buying like the flour, I'm buying the salt, having extra of that. I'm buying vinegar, olive oil, coconut oil, things that are the basics, not like, I'm not buying like Bisquick mix, I'm not buying like pancake mix, I'm not buying none of those things. I'm preparing myself to make everything that I'm going to eat, just like I've been doing. I've been doing this for years. I've been teaching myself this for years. Because number one, it's healthier for you. Number two, it saves you lots of money. And number three, when times are bad, your life is not going to change as much, because this is stuff that you already know and you already do. Right? Now, I am looking at my recipes and saying, well, what if I don't have this? How can I substitute this for this? So that is stuff that I'm also, that I didn't do before, that I'm also doing now, which is in my book, saying, okay, can I substitute this flour in this recipe for this other flour? So if I don't have wheat flour for this recipe, I can use the chickpea flour for this. And this takes time for research. This is when you have to do your researches now, because now you have internet. Now you can go online and you can watch videos. You can watch other people who cook and they know, and they can tell you, yeah, you can make pancakes with chickpea flour or whatever. And then in your recipe book, hopefully you have by now a recipe book actually in your kitchen that you've written recipes in, because a lot of your online recipes may not be there tomorrow. You may not have them there. You don't know what's going to happen when the internet could be involved in something that they take down, or it's down for a while and you can't get to your stuff on the internet. So you need to have these things written down. That's why in that video that I talked about starting to prep, and your plans and your ideas and all of that, you need to put them on paper. You need to have a notebook where you can put all of this stuff in, because, sorry about that, because that is going to be necessary if the internet goes down. You need to have this stuff on paper. So, and everything that you learn, write it down also in your notebook. So then the next time if something happens, you learn something and say, you know, I should be doing this. Or if everything goes back to normal, I think there's not going to be a normal anymore. I think this is going to be kind of like the World Trade Center. You know, there was before the World Trade Center, the world, and then there's the world after the World Trade Center, right? Everything kind of changed for us. But a lot of people forget over time. So they forget about all the things that happened. But this, I think, is going to be something where we're going to really start realizing that our children are not prepared the way that our families were in the past. We're giving up too many of our freedoms to make more money, to make more money in order to spend more money. That's the gist of it. You make more money to spend it. A lot of women, they should be home with their children, homeschooling them. I mean, when you factor in the gas to go to work, the hours that you're there, then you come home, you don't cook, you're buying prepared foods that are not nutritious for your children. And then, or you have to put them in daycare between 3 and 6 o'clock by the time you come home, and you're paying for that as well. I mean, think about your life, you know, what you're doing. You might have to downsize and go to a smaller house, a different type of neighborhood in order to have the kind of life that you really want. And they taught us that the life that we want doesn't come until we're 65 and retired. That's not the case. That's not the case. That only happens to people that are working all the time. All the time, because you're in debt. If you're not in debt, you don't have to live like that. If you have old cars, I have an old car. I've had new cars. I've had brand new cars. I've had leased cars. Beautiful cars. Guess what? The car, the minute you walk, you take it out, it's an old car. You know, it hurt me when I, you know, had a brand new car, and then a month later, I look at my car and I'm like, it's dirty. I gotta clean it. It doesn't look, you know, I mean, it's still a new car, which is great, but take care of your cars. They should last a long time. I mean, drive old cars. A lot of people drive brand new cars because of status. They want people to look at them. I don't care if people look at me. I have scratches on my car. It's an old car. This car that I'm driving is a 2003 Astrovan. My uncle left it for me because this is the car that I used to drive him around. This was his car. When I got this car here, it was only 19,000 miles on it. In 2015, only had 19,000 miles on it. Now it has about 55 or something. It doesn't hardly have any miles on it. It's a good car. And I'm grateful for it because normally what would happen is I would have my truck off, my camper off the truck, and I'd be using my truck. But now, having this old car, it's an old car, but I keep it nice and clean. I'm grateful for it. Every time I get in, I make sure I lock the doors. I don't give people the opportunity to come in and break in and take anything. I make sure that I park in the right places because I know people steal stuff. So that's what's going on. So I just tell you that I don't know, but I know that my life is changing from here on out because even though I've done a good job of doing things my way and not following the ways of the world for a long time, because God showed it to me years ago when I was in Fort Lauderdale. That's why I left and I came to the country because I knew that I was prepping back then. This was like 2010, 2011, 2012 when I left and I bought here. And I've been realizing, you know, the ways of the world are not sustainable. They really aren't because you have to follow along with corporations and certain things, and you're never going to be free. You're never going to be free because you want the bigger house and this and that. I had the bigger house and I wasn't happy. I mean, I was happy when I was married. I had a good life, but by myself, I realized I didn't need that. And yeah, it was a great house and everything, but I'm really happy where I am right now. I'm glad I have my garden, I have my land, I can do a lot with that piece of land. I know the value's going to go up. I mean, the values right now have skyrocketed. I've been telling people for years, you know, land is it, buy land. And they're like, oh, they're making fun of me, this and that. And well, look where you are now, look where other people are now. Those are the people you got to listen to, the people that made wise decisions. You know, they weren't doing what everybody else was doing, or they did what everybody else was doing, and then they changed their ways. You guys stop following everybody else and what everybody else is doing. If everybody else is doing it, you shouldn't be doing it at all. You know? And start separating yourself from those things that are going to brainwash you. You know, people that are going to brainwash you. Oh, you know, that's not going to happen, this and that. Well, you know what, if it doesn't, okay. It didn't hurt me. I just spent a little extra money up front, but this stuff I'm still using. You know, I'm rotating it. If I use a can of garbanzo, tomorrow I buy it. When I go to the store, I make up for that can. If I used up a bag of rice, tomorrow I go out, and if I open a bag of rice today that I had for prepping, well then guess what? Tomorrow when I go out, I make it up and I buy another bag. Or I buy 2 of those bags, you know, just so I can have that extra. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's good to have all this stuff, you know. I don't know. I'm on the side more of caution and preparing. Just like this is why we have insurance, right? We have insurance, life insurance. We have insurance for our homes, our cars, because it's an insurance policy is to make sure that, you know, something bad doesn't happen. And that's the same thing with your food. You know, there's no insurance policy for bad times that somebody's going to come and drive you a bunch of food. You have to do that yourself. This is your insurance policy. Because if you're not healthy, if you don't have nutrition, you can't do anything else. So it's important, but the only thing is also, you know, a lot of these oligarchs, like, you know, Gates, that he's buying all of this farmland, they're saying, I'm not going to trust farmland after that. I don't know what kind of stuff he's going to be putting in there. I mean, this guy, I don't trust him at all. So for me, I want to continue to grow my own. I want to learn how to do this. And different nutrients in them, different vitamins, amino acids, things that we can gain and we're not gaining. So that's what we have to do. We have to start eating variety. We have to start growing our own, paying attention to those things. So I thank you so much for watching. I'm almost home. I'm back, and I will talk to you next time. Have a lovely day. God bless. Bye-bye. Hey, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.